Okay, now getting a little bit of new stuff, kinda. In Algebra 1 last year, we did this at the end of the year. Now, this is not sample problems on the assignment. It's taking a square root and simplifying it. Because in Algebra 2, that's a skill you use. You also use it in geometry a lot as well. So, we're going to simplify the square root of 32. If you're in geometry, you probably already know how to do this. Okay. If I square root 32, it's an irrational number. Okay. It's not a perfect square root. Now, in Algebra 1, a lot of times we just rounded that off. Not in Algebra 2. Okay. Only time you get to do that in Algebra 2 is if you're using the quadratic formula. Okay. So, simplify. Well, what you do, you make two square roots. Okay. Look at these numbers in the square roots. What two numbers does 32 fall in between? These. So we start dividing and see if 32 can divide evenly. So divide by 25 first. You know it can't divide by anything bigger than it evenly. Decimal. Now let's try 16. Okay, that worked. Now what do I do then? You put the number you divided by, and then you put the answer. And you need to put it in that order. The number you divide by from the list needs to be in the first square root, and then the quotient in the second. Now, why do we do that? Because we are going to replace this square root of 16 with its equal, which is 4. So 4 square root 2. You just put a 4 and put that guy next to it. We did this at the end of the year last year in Algebra 1. If you had me 2 years ago, we didn't do it much. Okay, the square root of 75. 75 is not on the list either, so I make two square roots. And what two numbers does 75 fall in between? Okay, probably here. So I divide by 64 first. Nope. 49 next. Nope. Nope. 25. Bingo. Okay, so you put the number you divided by first, and then the result second. Why? Because you're trying to get as much of that out of the square root as possible, and we get that has an equal of 5. Okay, so 5 square root 3. Okay, how about 7? Well, 7 falls between here, and it doesn't divide by 4, so guess what? It's prime. Okay. Actually, no, don't write prime. Just circle the square root of 7. Circle the original. Okay, square root of 100. Is 100 on the list? Yeah, it's 10. Okay, so we don't need to do all that nonsense. We're just going to put here. All right, and before we get into the sample problems, I have a question to pose for you. X second equals 25. Now, there's two answers, but you notice I don't have regular x. It's just x to the second. What number times itself is 25? That's what x to the second means. There's a number times itself that's 25. Well, 5 is one of them, but there's another answer. Isn't negative 5 times itself also positive 25? Yeah, I mean a negative times a negative is a positive, so it could be 5 or negative 5. And in these equations today, you're only going to have x squared. You will not have that other x floating around the problem, so we won't have to factor. Okay, we'll get the x squared by itself and then square root. However, no decimals are allowed in the square roots. If it's a decimal, you need to go this route here. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about this. X squared, two answers. However, when I'm looking at that, I have x squared only. There's no x with it. That's why I always kept writing x squared and x. That told me I had to factor. With x squared only, no. So circle the x squared and its coefficient. You have to undo a plus. You got to get the x squared by itself. So minus 5, minus 5. So 3x squared equals 36. Then divide by the 3. Get that x squared by itself. Then I'll tell you what to do after that. X second equals 12. Now, the opposite, the inverse function of a second power is a square root. Okay? Second power and square roots are opposite. You know how plus and minus are opposites, multiply, divide are opposites. Second power and square roots are opposites. So what you do is you put a square root over both sides, and then you'll have the x. But here's where so this doesn't look that hard now, okay? But here's the annoying part, and I'm sorry I have to do this to you, but the square root of 12 is a decimal. To find square root, you go second x squared, second x squared. That is not going to be allowed. What you need to do on a sheet of scratch paper is make 2 square roots and see what 12 can be divided by from this list. Well, it's between these two. So 12 divided by 9, no. 12 divided by 4, bingo. So I want to put 4 and 3 in that order. Put 2 and 2 square root 3. Now, that's what you're going to put. 2 square root 3. Now you're like, well, I know that's one answer. The other answer is just the same thing with a negative in front of it. Because remember this problem here. Same thing, just negative in front of it when you do a square root. Okay, next problem. 2 answers. You want to get the x squared by itself. So is there any adding or subtracting? Nope. We need to divide by the 2 then, if there's no. And x to the second power equals 50. And second power, square root. So x equals. Now we're going to square it. 50. Is 50 on that list first off? No. If you square root the number and get a decimal, you're not going to write the decimal. You need to write square root of 50 and make 2 square roots. 50 is between these two. So 50 divided by 49, nope. 50 divided by 36, nope. 25, yep. 25 and 2. So replace that with its equal, which is 5. Okay? So on your paper, you've got your answer, 5 square root 2. So yeah, when you get that square root and it's a decimal, you need to be doing that simplification. So 5 square root 2 and 5 square root 2 negative. Don't overthink that, it's just that and it's negative. Okay, next problem, 2 answers. You can put a 1 in front of there. Is there any adding or subtracting to undo? Nope. You could divide by 1, but you can really just cross it off. So really, now you have to square root. So square root, and you put x equals, because a second power and a square root undo each other. And you just have what's inside. Okay, square root of 84. If that's a decimal, I'm going to have to... Yep, it is. Okay. So you need to write square root of 84 on your piece of paper and make 2 square roots and start dividing. Okay. This one's kind of annoying. 84 by 81, nope. 84 by 64, nope. 84 by 49, nope. By 36, nope. 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 Yep, got it. Okay. So 4 and 21. Okay. All right. Square root of 4 has an equal of 2. And that's your answer. So you put 2 with the square root of 21 next to it, and you just make it opposite. Okay. Okay, next problem. 2 answers. X squared here has a coefficient of -3. There are no plus or minus is, so we need to divide by the negative 3. I got 71, and now I'm ready to find the square root. Could be positive or negative. Okay, so square root 71. Decimal, so I put that down, the square root of 71. Problem is you're going to go through this list and it's going to be all decimals. Okay, so what do you do then? You just keep the 71 in the square root. Okay, because 71 doesn't divide by any of this stuff. Okay, watch. 64, nope. 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 Okay, you can see what I mean. So, that was no-go, so we're just going to write the square root of 71 down, and then the square root of 71, just put a negative in front of it. Okay, next. 2 answers because of the x squared. And again, all these have x squared only, so you just need to get the x squared by itself and then square root. Okay. Plus 10, plus 10. 7x squared equals 35. Now divide out the coefficient 7. X to the second equals 5. And then find the square root. However, the square root of 5 is a decimal, and 5 falls between here. 5's not divisible by 4, okay? So I guess I'll just write that answer down. The square root of 5, it's a prime square root. If it's prime, I'm going to write prime. That means you just put that down, the number with its square root. Okay, next problem here, you can put a 1 in front of that. Now, x squared, the 1/20th needs to be circled. So we have a plus minus we have to undo first. I don't know what that, we'll say it's 8, okay? So minus 8, minus 8. So 1x squared over 20 equals 7. Now, what do we do if there's a number on the bottom? Well, it's divide, so the opposite of divide is multiply, so you just multiply these two together. So you're going to have 1x squared equals 140. You don't need to divide by 1. That's silly. And now that I have my x squared by itself, it's time to find the square root. So if I square root 140, nope. So I write square root of 140 on a piece of scratch paper. And I see what I can maybe divide by. 140 divided by 121, nope. By 100, nope. 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 36, nope. 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 Yep, okay, finally 4 works. So it's 4 first, 35 next, and this becomes its equal of 2, because that first square root always has an equal. Okay, so on your sheet you put 2 square root 35 and then 2 square root 35 with a negative, okay? And if you wanted to finish out the problem, these would cancel and you'd have x. And whenever we square root, it's positive, negative, and then 2 square root 35. For those of you who don't think I'm being meticulous enough, okay? All right, next problem, 2 answers. Put a 1 in front. Remember, you got to include the denominator. You got to undo the plus 6, and that's 4. So 1x to the second over 25 equals 4. Okay, then we got to deal with the 25 then, before we worry about what's in front. It's just a 1. So I multiply the 25 over here, and that's 100. Don't need to divide by 1. You can if you want. It's kind of silly. Okay, it's time to undo the second power with its opposite of a square root. Okay, so I have x equals plus minus, and I'm not going to get a decimal because that's a 10. Okay, so I don't need to do all that crap on the scratch paper. 10, negative 10. So remember to square root on the calculator first, or know if it's a perfect square. All right, pause the video and do 1, 2, 3, and 4, please. Okay. These first two, you should not have to go through that process. They should square up perfectly. These two, you will. Pause the video, come back to it, because number 5 you won't know how to do until I show you it. Okay, the final problem that we kind of had to deal with, you know, how if there's x squared x, you got to make your factoring boxes. If there's x squared only, you can do what you just did and get it by itself. Now, what happens when x is in a parentheses and the second power is outside? Parentheses with a plus or minus expression, that's outside. Well, there's two answers, but there's two things you don't do. Or actually, one thing you don't do. You cannot take 7. You can't do the distributive rainbows because that second power blocks you from being able to do that. Okay? Right at that point. Okay? It's not going to work. So this is what I like to do. I like to replace this just the parentheses with the variable q. Now, what's in front of that parentheses? 7. What's outside? A second power, and then minus 18 equals 10. I'm just replacing x minus 4 with just a single variable. And then we're going to need to make this chart, okay, with two equations. Similar to how you do the absolute value, to be honest with you. Okay, the q to the second, let's get that by itself, okay? So I need to plus 18, plus 18. So 7q to the second equals 28. Okay, now get the q, separate the coefficient through dividing. Q to the second is 4. And the opposite of a second power is a square root. So those undo each other. Square root could be positive or negative. And on these problems, I wasn't mean. I put all square roots. That would work perfectly. So you don't have to go to the scratch paper. Okay, so what is q really, though? Because you're not done. You're not solving for q. You need to find x. What expression did I replace with q? X minus 4. So x minus 4, x minus 4. And we could be equal to 2 or negative 2. So plus 4, and that's 6 for the first answer. The other answer is not negative 6, okay? You got to go through the process, and that's 2. 6 and 2. Okay, my next problem has two solutions because of the second power, but again, you have a parentheses with that second power, so replace that with q, and then 4 second equals 100. Okay, get the q by itself, circle it. There's no plus or minus we would have to undo. We have to undo the 4 by dividing. And q to the second is 25. Then you find the square root, undo the second power. And once again, 25 is a perfect square root. You don't need to go to the process of trying to break it down. Okay? Square it on your calculator, and if it's any decimal, just write it. Okay, so what is q really, though? It's x minus 1. You got to bring back the original expression. Then you got 5 and negative 5. Plus 1, that's 6. Plus 1, that is negative 4. Okay, and then that's it for today. Go do number 5, please, on the back side.